Hi guys, this is Jenna. Thanks for tuning in. I've got this dragon silhouette painting that I'm going to show you how I came up with it. If you've painted with us before, you know the drill, but those of you who have not, I have my tray of acrylic paints. I didn't pour green because, well, I didn't use it. If you want to use green, you totally can. I have my paper plates here for mixing, and then brush wise I have these three. The little guy I won't use till the end, or until we do the silhouette parts and the dragon, but just for tiny little detail pieces. The middle guy is, I like to call him my mixing brush. I'm also going to paint with him today. I doubt I will use my big brush for this. I mean, if you want to use it, you totally can, but whenever I do any of these like blur, rainbow kind of skies and water reflections, I like to use the littler brush because it gives me more control and less paint. It doesn't get as goopy as it would with the bigger brush, but again, if you want to use the bigger brush, you totally can. Same with the colors. I wanted it to be kind of almost like the sun was, going up or coming down, but I wanted it to be kind of bright in the sky, but still a little gray, so like bright with a little bit of gloom to it. And then the water too. If you want to make this different colors and then do the black silhouette on top of, I don't know, purples and blues, you totally can do that. You know, I don't know, have fun. Okay, so I have, again, paper plates to mix, I have paper towels, and I have a water glass to rinse my brush off. After you rinse your brush, make sure you dry it really good. I don't know about the brushes you have, but the water tends to get stuck kind of in that metal part, and if you're painting and the water drips, it'll pull off the paint that you have on your canvas. So just make sure when you're drying, almost like squeeze the end so you make sure you get all that water out, or dried up, I guess. With that, I'm going to paint the whole background first, and then the black silhouettes I'll do over top. The stars will be the tiny little pieces we'll do at the end. When you're doing this, when I do any of this, like the color blending, you need both colors to be wet, otherwise the color will just go right over top of it. So like when you're doing the sky, I'm going to paint the yellow so that there's fresh yellow on the canvas, and then when you go back, if you're blending the gray into it, it might just kind of paint the gray on top of the yellow. If that happens, just add a little more yellow to it, and you can kind of play around with, how your colors blend in. The orangey, like peachy color, I did that at the end with like a dry brush, so that we won't do until later. But I'm going to mix all of those colors now so that I have them ready to go, and then we will start blending. Okay, so color mixing wise, I'm going to mix kind of like a marigold yellow. So I'm gonna do 1 scoop of white. I'm gonna do 2 scoops of yellow, and then the red, because the red is really overpowering, I'm gonna add little bits at a time. So I'm gonna do a little bit of red and mix it up, kind of see how it goes. Okay, so I think that's good for me. If yours if yours turned out to be more orange, just add a little more yellow to it. If you didn't add enough red, you can add a little bit more, just do little bits at a time. So from here, I'm going to rinse my brush because I'm going to make like a gray. Okay, make sure you dry it off really good. So the gray, I'm going to start with my white. So I'm going to do, probably going to do three. I'll do 3 scoops of white. And then the black, same as the red, black's really overpowering. So add little bits of black at a time. Okay. If you want it to be a little darker, you can add a little more black to it. If you want it to be lighter, add a little more white. I think mine's good. I think mine's good there. And then I have a darker gray that I put a little bit over here. So same thing, do a little bit of white. I think I did 2 scoops. So 2 scoops of white, and then just add a little more black than you did for this one so that it's a little bit darker. You can add a little blue to it too if you wanted it to have kind of a little blue tone. Okay, and then with your paints, just kind of scrape them up so that they stay in a pile so that you still have those, doesn't like dry up on your plate. Okay, so we've got the yellow, we've got the lighter gray. I'm going to rinse my brush off and then I'm going to scoop some white onto my plate so that I have it. We'll mix this blue after we get done with our sky. So wash and dry really good. And then I'm going to just scoop some clean white onto my plate so that I have it for the background. Okay, so now here's what you're going to do. And again, if I'm going really fast, just, you can pause and go back, but you want the colors to be wet, and I'm kind of just going in like a left and right stroke. So kind of wipe the white off. I'm going to go in with my yellow, and I'm going to stroke in wherever there's yellow, kind of wherever you want yellow on your painting. So I'm just going to work my way down. So anywhere we've got yellow. Okay. Make it almost like a huge patch. I'll go down here. And then where the reflections are in the water, so I know I'm going fast. You do not need to keep up with the speed that I'm going with. I'm just trying to quick show you. Okay, so here's where I'm at. If you want to, you can do the edges as you're going with the colors that you have, so that the sides of your canvases are painted. It's up to you. So now I'm going to go back in with the white. So I'm going to lighten up some of these yellow edges. And keep this paint thin. You don't want it to be too clumpy. So you can go in with your white. And don't worry, right now, see how it's mixing into your yellow? If it's not becoming white enough, you can go back to it later. For now, I'm just try to lighten it up a little bit to give it kind of like a softer edge. So now with this yellow, I'm not going to rinse my brush off because I don't want my brush to get overly wet, but I'm going to just wipe it with the paper towel. And I'm going to go in with my light gray. Now, tap it so that you just have a little bit on your brush. If you scoop it, you're going to have too much to blend in, and then it's going to just be overpowering with the gray. So for now, that gray, the little bit that you have on your brush, just kind of softly blend it into your yellow. You can add little bits at a time. You can go, your strokes can be left and right. It's up to you. But just do little bits at a time. And I'm just going to keep going around my canvas, adding little bits of this gray. Okay, and I like I like the streakiness of it, but it's up to you, however you want to make your sky look. It's up to you. Again, if your gray isn't really getting as dark gray as you want to, you can go back later and add a little more. Just let it dry a little before you go back to it. Okay, so see, I'm just brushing in the gray. Add as much as you want to. Okay, and just kind of slowly work your way around. Let's see. I hope you don't hear that rattling. Something is rattling on my wall back there. Don't know what it is. Okay. So work your way down to kind of where you think your horizon line is going to be, and then that's where I'm going to stop, because then I'm going to mix these blue colors before I go down into the water. So over here I have a little bit of that darker gray, so I'm going to go in with that dark gray over here, just kind of brush in from the side. If you want to add a little bit more of that dark gray up throughout your light gray, it's up to you. I like when it has kind of streaks of different colors in the sky, so I'm going to go around with this dark gray a little bit. Now, when you're doing this, keep in mind, if you're doing other colors, keep them light enough that when you do your silhouettes, you know, the black will still jump out because your background is light enough. But too, if you do a background like this, you could always put the dragon on a lighter spot on your canvas too. So I think that's all right. I'm going to go back in with some of my yellow just to brighten up some of these pieces. And it's drying really yellow, crayon yellow, if you will. I'm going to add a little more red to half of my yellow here, so that I still have my original yellow. I'm just going to make this a little bit more orangey. Okay, if you have a lot of paint on your brush, just kind of wipe it off on your paper towel. You don't want a lot. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and add some of this marigold kind of yellow over top. This isn't the orange. We'll do that later. This is just kind of brightening up, adding a little more of that orangey tone. I'm sorry, marigold tone to the yellow. Those orange pieces we'll add later. Okay, if you want to right now, you can add more white. I would rinse my brush off just so it's not any of the other colors that you have. So let's see, maybe I'll lighten up. Just kind of move around. Okay. I have this part really light here. It's like the sun is, you know, going up or coming down, so I have that really light down at the bottom. Let's do a little more up here. And I think we'll be good. Okay. Okay, so there's your sky. I'm going to mix that turquoisey color right now. So this is what we're going for. This darker blue. this here is just mixed into the yellow, so that's why it looks kind of green. So I'm going to do 2 scoops of blue, and I'm going to do a little bit of black, and then a little bit of white. Oh, sorry. And I hear my dog coming up. If you hear snorting or sniffing, it's her. You can add a little bit of yellow if you want to. I'm going to do a little more black. Okay. Okay, so now I have, oh gosh, sorry. Now I have that dark blue kind of watercolor. So rinse your brush off. We're going to go in with your gray first. Alright, and now, ooh, squeaky chair. Okay, so now we're going to go in with the light gray. We're going to do that first. So, blend that light gray kind of up into your sky. And then I have, you can kind of cover this like little bits at a time here. And this has white over top of it and a darker gray. Right now we're just doing the lighter gray. We're going to build up to that darker gray. So think of water and the ripply, you can kind of turn your brush to the side so that you don't get full thick strokes this way. So I'm just going to start to paint in with this light gray. Got a little down here, that light gray. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with the turquoisey blue color. Now I'm going to start at the bottom. So I'm going to kind of start to stroke it in here. Now see how it's completely painting over my yellow? If you want to mix that in, go back in with your yellow and it'll help you to kind of blend it and make it a little softer. Okay? Same thing, turn your brush to the side, create those kind of water ripply pieces. Work your way down. The yellow's dry over here, so if you want to have that streaky kind of blended in, dip your brush in yellow so that you can kind of blend into that turquoise. You can go back in with the gray, help you to get that streaky look. I know I'm covering up the yellow over here, but I just kind of have it poking through in some of the spots. Whoops, that I covered up, but so just do little bits. With your turquoise here, okay? Now your turquoise color, your watercolor, if it's not as dark as you want it to be, like right now you can kind of see through a little bit to the canvas in some of the spots. You can go back, you can add a little more of that turquoise, you know, as it's drying to your canvas. I'm just going to fix that spot there, hold on. Okay. So now I'm going to go in with that dark gray. I'm going to go up here to start. Now the turquoise is on my brush. If you needed to, I mean, if you want to, you can wash off and dry before you go into this dark gray. Okay. So keep going around, fill in some of the darker gray. And then we'll come back with the white. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush off. I'm going to go back, add some more of the yellow and then some of the white. So you can do some of that orangey yellow if you want to, and just kind of help yourself. Add to some of that yellow here. Let's see. This way. Just so the reflections match the sky color. Okay. Now I'm just going to wipe my brush off. I'm going to go back in with some of the white. So see, I have some in the sky up here, just little brush strokes. Just to add a little more brightness to your sky. Okay. Now this part here is still pretty wet, so I'm going to wait to do that spot. I'm going to move down here just to put in some of my white down here. And then kind of work your way up. See, it's just blending into the gray, but it's okay. And now up here, soften up some of this gray with some white. See how it doesn't, it just adds a little bit of like brightness to it. And then just go down. You can add as much of this as you want to. It's totally up to you. I'm going to go in with my blue just to make it a little darker on the bottom here. Okay. So play around with this part. Once you get the hang of kind of blending in and like comfortable with blending in, you know, the mixing with the different colors, just have fun with it. I could just do this all day. Okay. Once you have your sky and your water, I'm good there. Okay. Let's do some of this orange right now before we go to do the black. It'll give some of this time to dry. You already have it started here, so your darker yellowy color, just add a little more red to it. And then I'm going to use my tiny brush. For these pieces, I kind of want them to be small and a little see-through, almost like a dry brush. So you will put some paint on your on your brush, and then wipe it off on your paper towel so you don't have a lot on your brush. And then just kind of work your way through your background. You can do just little pieces, because this you're just brightening up some of your sky, okay? You can do some of your water too, but come back to that because that might still be a little wet. So just with this orange, work your way up. Just add another little color to your sky in little stroke pieces. Okay. You can add a little to your water. Okay. Now, rinse your brushes off. We'll use both again. So rinse off your tiny brush, dry it really good. Rinse off your mixing brush, dry it really good. Okay, so before we do the dragon, we're going to do some of these land pieces. Now I have kind of like a shadow in the water. We'll do that just like we just did the orange. So almost like a dry brush, but some of your water might still be wet, so that you can kind of help blend into your water, because you don't want it to be solid. But we're gonna mix a dark gray. It's almost black, but it's pretty much it just has black with it's black with a little bit of white in it. And then we'll go back later with straight black to underline and kind of put the pieces that are directly hit the water. So for now, we'll do just a tiny little bit of white. Ooh, where am I? Tiny little bit of white. And let's do 3 scoops of black. Mix that up. Do a little more white. So you want like a dark gray. Still kind of looks black with that shiny light, but a dark gray is what you're aiming for, okay? And when you're doing this, you don't want a big glob of paint on your brush, so I'm going to just kind of wipe some of that off. But I'm going to start with this guy up here, just giving it kind of, you know, a bumpy hill kind of look. So start a little bit lower than where you have your horizon line, okay? And you're just going to flick out so that it's pointy. And then I just kind of like bump my hand a little bit so that it creates like a bumpiness. Okay? And then you want it to be straight across the bottom. right? Easy peasy. Land number 1, done. I'm going to come over here. Now this one's a little bit smaller. So this one, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do my bottom first, and then build up. Now this one I have grass on the top. Now you can use this brush if you want to, and just kind of flick up to create little grass pieces. If that doesn't work, if you're not comfortable with that, you can use your tiny brush and just make little grassy pieces. We'll come back to that. Alright, so now I have these two down here. So I'm going to create the bottom for this one first. And I'm just going to do my almost straight line over to the edge. And then I'll just bump in a little piece of land. Same thing, you can, nope, that's still a little wet, so I'll come back to do the grass. This land piece that's over here, I'll start from this side and go over. And then you can kind of bump up this side too. Okay, and then the bottom is just grass coming up from the bottom of the canvas, so that you can use this brush. See how I'm not pushing really hard, I'm just kind of flicking, and that's what's creating those grassy pieces. If you need to use your little brush, you can. I'm going to fill in here, a little on this side and then a tiny little bit on this side, just almost like a little fluff. Okay, now I'm going to do the shadow that's underneath the islands. So just wiping off any excess paint that I have, and I'm going to go in side to side so that I'm creating kind of those like water ripple lines. Okay, and you want to try to make it like a mirror image, because it's a reflection of the water, but it doesn't have to be the same shape. So just kind of brush in so that it's a little bit lighter. Just follow along with the shape that you have, okay? Okay, so there's that guy. Now same thing with this one here. I'm just going to brush in a little bit on the bottom here to give it a little shadow. Same thing with this one, but it looks like that teal is still pretty wet. Okay. This guy too. Just brush in so you have that underneath shadow part. Okay? Easy peasy. Okay, now I'm going to go back with my little brush and add some grass. So with this, see how I'm kind of like swirling? I'm twisting my brush so that it points out the little pieces. I mean the brush pieces, so I can make like tiny grass pieces. So just flick it up a little, not pushing too hard, and that'll help you create little grass. Okay. Do that down here with this guy. So you can have some taller pieces, some smaller pieces, kind of create some different heights with this grass. Now that part on the edge there is still really wet, so it's not letting me paint any of the black. So I'm going to let it dry a little bit. I'll come back to that. So any of the spots on your canvas, if you're painting and it's not, nothing is like showing up, your paint is just a little too wet. So just let it dry. You can come back to it later and add to it. And then this guy, I want to make a little more pointy, so I'm going to just, with my tiny brush, have it come out a little bit, and then I'll put more grass on it. Okay, this grass that's coming up from the bottom, if you want to add some taller pieces, you can. On this side too, same thing. Start with tiny pieces and then just work your way up. Have some taller pieces, some shorter pieces. So my brush right now is starting to get a little fat with my strokes, so there's just too much paint in there. So use your paper towel. You can kind of pinch it to make it like a razor blade, and then use that to make your longer tiny pieces, okay? Oh, I got a little tall. Okay. You can do some down here if you want to. Okay. Alright, so I think we're good with grass and those hill pieces. I'm going to see what this is like. Okay. Grass there and my little shadow. Okay, so now we're going to do the dragon. So with this same color we just used for the island, this dark gray, charcoaly kind of color. Now, his nose is really tiny. I'm going to use my brush here. And you don't have to have, if you want your dragon flying up here, you can do that. It doesn't have to be where I have it. I'm going to use the tip of my brush. That's going to be almost like a stamp. So it's going to help me draw kind of where his nose is going to be. It's almost like a triangle. Okay? So use your brush to make that shape that goes up. Then I'm going to have it go to the right a little bit. Okay? You can be careful too, you don't stamp your hand in the black under here. So I have underneath here, I have it rounded out a little bit so that you can see his head, and then round it out a little bit so it's almost like his neck before it starts to come down. Now, don't worry about all this up here. We'll do that later. I'm going down this way to create this line, and I'll do the tail, and then I'm going to go back, okay? So create that neckline, and then I have one little bump, two little bump. You're almost making like a snake in the sky. Okay, so now I'm going to stop here because my tail is going to be really thin. So I'm going to do that after I'm going to pinch my brush a little so that it's really thin. Okay, and then I have it kind of curled. So just don't push too hard on your brush. Curl up a little bit, and then you can go back if you want to give it a little, almost like an arrow pointed kind of edge. And then I'm going to work my way back. So I'm going to fill in, and I have kind of, it's almost like hairy looking, almost like there's spikes back there. Fill that in so that it's a little thicker tail, okay? And then give it a little thicker body. So it's like a weird flying snake kind of a thing right now, okay? Now I'm going to do this front wing. So I'm going to start up from, actually let's do those spike pieces. So like I showed you before, pinch your paintbrush so that it gives you kind of like a razor blade, and you can give him two horns, I guess. Okay, rabbit ear looking things. And then I did spiky pieces from that kind of going back. So then from there is where I'm going to work my wing from. So I'm going to go up from here, and then this is going to come up this way. So almost like forget this guy and create that like shark fin, I guess. Okay? So this is going to go up past where his head is. So I'm just going to draw that line back this way. Okay? And then this here, I'm going to do this first spike down. And then this next spike is going to go behind that first spike that you just did. And then the tip of the wing is going to go to the back of that second spike that you just did. Okay, and you can paint that in. Just go slow. Okay, so wing number 1. Now, wing number 2 is going to go back to the right. So, same thing. I'm going to create that first spike that's going to be a little bit higher than the other spike that you had. So I'm going to make that spike go down this way. I'm going to make it a little thicker here. Okay, and then this here is going to come back this way, but I'm going to wait to do that. I'm going to work on the top. Okay, so you have this spike down. So now same thing. Second spike, that's this one here, is going to go a little behind that one. Third spike is going to go to that next one. So this one I got to make a little bit thicker. Okay, this one curves a little bit more, so just be careful with your hand. Try not to push too hard on your brush. And then this one is going to be almost like a C. So this one's going to be a little lower. Make almost like a C, I guess kind of like a rainbow to the back. And then you can go back now. This here, be careful. I'm going to go from this way up. Okay, so now you can paint all that in. Be careful with your edge. I gave this guy another few little spikes. Paint him in this way. And then you can go back if you need to. You can make them pointier. Paint in all that. Oops. Okay, so see now I just tried to paint him in and I made a little bump. I'm just going to make that another little spike. Okay? Easy fixin', no worries. Alright, so now looking at your dragon, if you need to, I'm going to make this a little bit fatter here. You can kind of fix your lines depending on how your body is. I think we need to do a few more spikes coming up. Okay. Okay. Donezo. So now all we have is stars. You want to put some stars up where you have your gray. You can use the tip of your tiny brush. You can use the back of your brush kind of like a stamp. So like if you stamp it in your white paint, and then you can just go around to add those star pieces. It's up to you how many you want. I generally overstar, but these I'm just going to do a little bit here and there. Kind of like the sun's going down and the stars are just popping up a little bit. Okay. Alright. Just do a few more stars here. some more over here. See, I told you, I overstar. I always do. Okay. All right, so that's all we have for this guy here. I hope you enjoyed this dragon little painting. Sorry. Yeah, hope you liked it. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll be back. We'll be back soon. Take care, guys. Thanks.